Good morning and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Kez, Wickham, St. George. Good afternoon, or yes, good afternoon for you.
It is. Good afternoon to you too.
Kez, wonderful to have you on. So tell us, who are you, what are you doing, where are you from?
Okay, originally my name's Kez Wickham St. George. I'm an author and an artist. Originally from New Zealand, moved to Australia. It was coming over to sort of help my husband on his jobs and decided not to go home. That was it. So that's who I am. That's what I do.
Love it. And you have just released a new book just very, very recently. Talk to us about that.
I have. That was, my husband gets transferred a lot. Well, before he retired, he did. And I was lucky enough that he wanted me to go with him. So I've travelled the width and breadth of Australia, the width and breadth of New Zealand many times, the South Pacific Islands. I've been to Europe twice. And I gave the story. So in Australia, we have bush, and that really means going out into the bush. Australia is a huge, huge place. It's a bit scary for me. See the acres and acres of land around you, and yeah. So once you light that fire to cook your sausages over, or your skewers as we call them, all these people come out the bush to talk to you. It's amazing. People come off the road, they pull in, they say, do you mind if we have a cup of tea and a bit of a rest up? And they tell me their story. And often we pulled into what they call a lay-by here. And there'll be people already there, and we join their campfire. So it's pretty cool.
It's a great, because you were saying previously when we spoke, there's a whole community that are traveling around almost all the time, right? That's sort of an
they're called the
ongoing
grey
thing.
nomads.
The grey nomads.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's great.
Yeah.
All
Sort of suits, doesn't it?
all in their camper vans and all sort of got their own journeys to go on and no sort of timescales to fall under, really.
What we've noticed is since COVID, and you could only go to certain parts of the country, we couldn't cross borders, that there's a lot of young ones and families, young kids with mum and dad being homeschooled on the road now. They've given up their homes, or they've lost their homes through the mortgage not being paid, or couldn't pay the rent. Caravan, and some of them are huge. Honestly, Pete, I don't know how they drive them. We've got a little 14-foot pop top, and we're like the baby of all the caravans on the road. But yeah, there's a lot of young ones out there now homeschooling their kids, and who's to say it's wrong or right? I think it'd be a fabulous way to be a kid, because you have all this beach, and the beaches over here are magic. So beach or bush, whatever you want, you can scamper about and play in the dust and get homeschooled at the same time.
I love that. I mean, it's very different, I suppose, isn't it? You know, it's a different lifestyle to what a lot of people would be used to. You know, the sort of traditional, have a career, you know, sort of a lifetime, a mortgage, 2.2 or 2.4 kids, and you know, it's just a different way of life now, right? You know, it's all changed.
It's been that way for a wee while, I think. Maybe it's for the best, you know. Who made the rules that having a mortgage makes you happy? You know, who just said, let's have a caravan and tour and teach our kids about the country? I mean, we just don't meet Australians. We meet every single person in different countries. We haven't travelled during the COVID period, but before then, you know, especially the Dutch, the Americans, they all want to give it a go. They want to see what we're made of here in Australia. And so, yeah, they tour quite a bit, especially Asians. And I get such joy out of watching all these people trying to put the bits together from their caravans and what goes where, and I'm helping them find their way. It's fun.
You a bit of a people watcher, are you, Kez?
Definitely, yes. And a listener, yeah.
It's great.
My husband will say to me, what are you staring at? And I say, you know what, I'm taking mental notes.
I love that. I mean, it sounds like you, for whatever reason, you have a lot of people telling you their story and things like that. I mean, where does that come from? Do you think that's just...
Oh, try and shut an Australian up. That's the problem. they're gorgeous people, and they've all got such big hearts, and they've all got big stories. So Australia is a huge land. It's massive. Even though I say I've been the width and the breadth, I haven't even covered half of it. I've been around and I've been across, but in between the around and across, there's massive masses of land out there, and people live on this land, and I don't know who they are. So when we stop and light our fire to boil the billy, that's when they catch up with you and they want to know who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. But yeah, we all tell each other stories, but that's life. I mean, we are storytellers, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the life you're describing there is so different to the sort of and the social media aspect, where people sit on their couch and they're pinging and liking and doing all that, but yet not talking to the person beside them. It's a different life, right?
It is a very different life. I don't have TV in our caravan. I won't have it. I'll take a DVD with me if I want to watch something. I'm an artist, so I add colour to my sketches. I will watch I mean, when you're sitting outside your caravan, Pete, and you're having homemade scones and a cup of tea, and a great big bird goes by, and it's called an emu, and they're colossal, they're just huge, and you just freeze, because you don't know what it's going to do. They won't harm you, but they want, they're going through their territory, they're going on their walkabout of their territory, and when you see the animals over here in the bush, how could someone not try and note it or draw it or sketch it or photograph it or whatever? It's an amazing place.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So talk to us then about your book writing. So you've now written, is it 9 novels or 10?
That was my 10th one. I published 2 weeks, a month ago.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a month ago.
And how long have you been writing?
And how long have I been where?
How long have you been writing then in total?
Oh, I've been writing since I was a little child, but seriously publishing about 10 years, 10, 12 years, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on your 10th. That's a bit of a milestone itself, isn't it? How do you feel about it?
So excited. I had the most fabulous publisher, as we discussed. I had the COVID had just, the rules had been brought down, so I could have 30 people in a room. So I had a live launch, which was an absolute thrill. The books were flying off the shelf and I was signing and there was music playing and it was just a fabulous night. It really was. I was happy about the books. I'm still selling them. Yeah.
That's lovely. It's a lovely way to see that. Well, one, I suppose, to see it in print and then to actually meet the readers and, to be able to convey that and even to personalize them as well. I mean, it's quite something, right?
Yeah. It's to see the book that you've had as a baby for a very long time, because I did write it and some guys in England published it, but they closed their doors and they sent it back to me. And then I got hold of Karen and we decided to work together on it. But it's a trilogy. It's 3 books. I've got the next one coming out in March, April. I'm just helping to edit that as we speak. But just seeing your baby in your hands, it's the most magic feeling out.
Do you find, is it easy to let go of it? I mean, is there a point, is it ever finished? I mean, do you always look at it and think, oh, I could have changed that or done that, or I'm happy just let it go? Or what way do you feel about it?
Oh, about the book?
Yeah.
Don't forget these. Okay, so about the book, how did I feel? Goodness me. I was glad to see it go off the shelves and sign it. I was happy to. The hardest part for me as a writer is handing it over to the editor. Now, I'm very, very aware that editors make your book shine. There's no doubt. They are the experts on how you get your word across. But sometimes when you realise that they've taken out a paragraph and not told you, it's like, ow, that stings, because I loved that particular paragraph. But to be honest, it's the whole book. You don't want it touched. You just want it like it is. And you've got to be honest. When the editor says that doesn't sound good or that doesn't look right, you better pay attention because they know what they're talking about. So, yeah, I had to take my hands off completely and say, you edit and I'll follow the rules. There you go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. As you say, I mean, it is, it's accepting somebody else's view on it too. And then
Yeah.
I suppose because you're so involved in it as well, right? It's
Yes.
making sure that it can be translated and understood by others, So talk to us about your art then. I mean, that's obviously a
Yeah.
strong part of what you do as well.
I've been an artist for many, many years now. I started a program up just before COVID hit called Step Back. Step Back is teaching other people how to relax. You don't put a brush to canvas. I actually pour paint onto canvas, and we use different genres so that it's mixed and it turns out beautiful. Of course, all my paintings are beautiful. And I've been showing it to people. It's called Step Back Program, and it's just showing people how to slow down, really, take that big breath. But the best thing about it, Pete, is watching their faces when they see what they've done. And that just brings such joy to my heart to watch that.
It is that creative side, right? That sort of ability to, I mean, do you see it in your head before, or is that the process when you start actually, painting and going through it and creating the art?
I've done it for so long now, I sort of can tell you how the colours are going to turn out when they start pouring or pressing or sliding or anything that we do in the different genres of art. But I can sort of tell you how the colours are going to turn out. But each time it still surprises me how they tend to blend. You get lacing, you get blisters, you get all sorts on different art canvases. And I don't know. It's showing people that you've got to be careful with your own life. You've got to look after yourself. If your cup's not full, then you can't give to anybody else. And people do get sick. So I've just asked them to take that step back and look after themselves, do some art. This weekend I'm off to Margaret River, as we spoke about, and I'm teaching 8 ladies how to journal. So what is journaling? Well, in my heyday, we called it a diary. And it's just change of words. And, when you think about how people have changed words, art is art. Painting is not putting a brush to canvas, it's putting your dream, putting your colours onto canvas. Journaling's a diary. It's putting down your thoughts and actions of the day or the previous day. And sometimes troubled people find solutions. I normally go to sleep while I'm writing my diary, and I wake up and my glasses are half off my face and my book's on the bed. And, but it relaxes me. It's my relaxant for the day to go to sleep with. And that's not a bad thing.
It's a great thing, isn't it? Really, I suppose it's exercising the mind and also getting your thoughts down on paper. And do you read back your journals? Do you enjoy that?
Oh no, no. I found a journal I had written 2 years ago, and I found it and had a read, and I thought, what a grumpy bum. So I just ripped it up and threw it in the bin. But if I find that if I'm writing down dates, times, of course, and appointments like you and I had tonight, of course it goes in the journal, so I remind myself. But yeah, I wouldn't advise anybody to go back and read, because you'll actually get an insight into your mood swings, your ups, your downs, your ins and outs. That's what a journal is. It's releasing.
That's great. I've never really thought about it like that, because a lot of people look back and talk about it very romantically at my journal, but I suppose, yeah, you got to be careful because that was your thoughts at those times, and life's moved on, you've moved on, you become wiser, better, quicker, faster, whatever. So it's not always
I like
positive.
that quicker, faster bit. I'd like to be quicker and faster.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose, and I don't know. I suppose doing a lot of personal development myself at the moment, and they talk about, so the wiser you get, the less you say, because you appreciate things, or you can see things in so many different ways. Whereas I think when you're, when you're younger, you have an opinion about everything.
Oh
So
yeah,
so different.
I agree. But you know, in my younger years, I was a school teacher, but I taught a certain class of people. They were homeless, and the people that were very, very sick and had no return from their illness. And one thing I insisted on teaching was self-respect and motivation, because you've got to, if you don't motivate yourself, you can't expect other people to do it for you.
Mm. How do you teach that, out of interest?
Motivation.
Yeah.
Well, it's literally like giving advice to. I wrote a book on it, and that remained in New Zealand on how to be motivated. It was all about getting work, of course. I taught the unemployed, and um, how do you teach it? Well, you more or less you guide them. You can't. In my book, you can't teach anybody anything. You have to guide. You can sit there full of instructions, but does anybody really listen? Until they come across it themselves and think, oh, okay, so that was a little bit of advice I was giving. I can put that to use in my life.
Isn't it, I think it's so up there. Exactly. You've no idea of what people have gone through, so you can only sort
Try.
of ask questions, or as you say, guide them. You can't, because what's right for you might not be right for them, right?
Exactly. I agree. Yeah.
So what sort of period were you teaching then?
What sort of period of my life?
Hmm.
I was in my 40s, and my husband was working away from home a lot, and I just felt I was chained to the sink and the children. So a friend popped in and she said, "You are wasted here." And so she said to me, "Go to night school," which I don't know if you have it in Ireland, but a night school in New Zealand is a very big thing. So I went to night school and I sat my degrees on teaching, and I taught tourism. And then I found my niche in talk and teaching that really were low on hope,
I
and
think
I
that's
loved it.
that's great, isn't it? Was it the interaction side, or what was it that about teaching that just resonated for you?
Watching them succeed.
Hmm.
They would come up to me and say, "Thanks to you, I found a job." I said, "Not thanks to me, thanks to you. I couldn't have gone and found them a job. They had to find them themselves. We could point them in the right direction. That was also part of my curriculum, but I couldn't get the job for them. They had to prove themselves." So when you make a person stand still and say, "Look what you've done with getting a job, bettering yourself, maybe getting a home to live in, and going off a pension of some sort." Yeah, watching their growth's amazing. I think the best situation I was ever in, I was walking down Queen Street in Auckland, and a young Samoan girl rushed up and hugged me, and she went, "Thanks to you, I'm now fully employed." I taught her 3 years ago, 3 years passed from seeing her on the street. I didn't recognize her. She was a different woman. And that proved to me that, you just have to, sometimes you have to stand still and hold your hand out and say, "How can I help?" And I've made that a practice. How can I help? Sometimes you can't.
Isn't it fascinating too? I mean, you just don't know the ripples you've created in somebody else's pond. 3 years on, you
That's
sort of
right.
fascinating, right?
That's right. I had to ask her name. I didn't know who she was. I didn't recognize her. So, yeah, she'd changed so completely, and the confidence in her was amazing. She stood tall. She was proud of her heritage. She was proud of being an islander, a South Pacific islander. And it was good to see, because no one needs to be ashamed of anything. If you're trying to prove something, that get a job or anything like that, write a book, do some art, it all adds to the concept of self-esteem and confidence.
And you talked there about as well, teaching self-respect. I mean, what's the principles behind that?
Well, the teaching of self-respect, gosh, if you don't respect yourself, who are you going to respect? You know, there's a lot of people out there that are, you know, on a weird road of bullying and violence and that, and there's just no respect. So if you can't show them the road that it's just so easy to step on, it's so easy to practice self-respect for yourself first of all, for the vessel that you're sitting in. I have a different belief to other people, so I call it my vessel. But for the vessel that we're sitting in, for our minds, for our hearts, it's just respecting it, and especially, you know, knowing that your heart and your mind communicate. And that I was told that by a psychologist, and that just blew me away.
So what do you see then? You see the body, you see the mind, you see the heart.
Beliefs, I see it. We live inside a body, yeah. Yeah, this body, but my parents created. I've just carried it on. You know, I enjoy this body, but I do believe we are spirit beings enjoying a physical body on this planet. To me, and these are my beliefs. They might not be of interest to anybody, but I firmly believe that as spirit, we just don't die. We go on. And that's what my books are about too, Pete. It's you know, they're always going to be there. They're always going to be a footprint for someone to say, well, if Kes could do this, you know, if she could write a book about traveling and you know, encourage people to write and paint, and she left that footprint, but perhaps we can carry on. Because my shoes aren't too big to film, you know, so let's make it real. Let's do something for each other.
I mean, what is your desire when somebody reads your book? I mean, what's the best thing they could take away from it? You know, what would sort of
growth? Okay. The story of my book. Okay, I talk about going on a journey and meeting lots of people and lots of campfires and stuff, but it really does have a main character, and it's about her growth in the world. Like when I started writing the book, the lead character was the domestic goddess of where I live, Rockingham. And she would never, ever think of going on a journey in a caravan of all things. Oh, don't even mention a tent. That was disgusting. And her husband comes home and said, I've been given some bad news about my health. I'd like to go caravanning. And so she decides to cooperate. So she has to give up so much. She has to, and this is today's world. She has to give up all her networking. She has to give up talking to her, going out for coffee with her friends every day. She has to give up many things in her life. But when she does give it up, the one thing she misses is her chickens. Of all things, she misses her backyard chickens. So the story goes on that hubby gets very, very sick. She has to come home and look after him, and he dies. And again, all these stories, if they weren't personal experiences, they were told to me. So a friend of mine, she was traveling to the outback in a caravan with her husband, first time in the van, and he died at the wheel. So I told the story for her because she couldn't write it. So I told the story. And so in the book, the lead character, Tara, she decides she really enjoyed the road trip with her husband, and she was going to honour that by taking his ashes back up to what we call the Pilbara, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. It's got red dirt, big green trees, just beautiful. She takes his ashes up there, and she realises she doesn't want to stop. She wants to keep on. So she rents her house out to an English couple, and she carries on, and she goes across to New Zealand, and then Kes takes over because that's my stomping ground. So I take over in New Zealand, and it's still the lead character, Tara, but I loved talking about the places I've seen and experienced in Australia and in New Zealand. But the next book out, it's all about Australia. You know, the places I've seen and just for instance, in New Zealand, you're driving along this highway and you come to a beach. It's called Hahi Beach. It's a Maori name. And you see people sitting in holes in the sand, and you think, what are they doing? Well, it's hot water. Hot water's coming up out of the sand, and they're having this hot water. It's very therapeutic. So you imagine that I'm sitting up to there in mud and sand, and the water's so warm around me. It's a winter's day, and the beach is grey, and the water's blowing up, and it's all grey and mucky with all that storm going on. But I was warm as toast. I'm sitting up to there in murky water, and it's as warm as toast, and there's people all around me doing the same thing. People don't. If you're a Kiwi, you'll know what I miss. You've been to a hot water beach, you wouldn't understand. It's like a spa. It's like a muddy spa. It's beautiful. So that's what I write about, Pete. It's taking people on my journey where I've been. You know, going to artists' studios and seeing what they do. In Wellington, I went out for dinner with a friend, and I was introduced to another friend of a friend, and they asked me for dinner. So I went to dinner, and I met this woman who said, "Oh, I hand make rag rugs." Now, my grandma, my nana made rag rugs for her house, and to me, it's such a what the old ladies used to do with their time. So she never told me this, but I went to the museum the next day, and who should be displaying her the most stunning work of rag rugs was this woman I'd had dinner with, and she was so humble and so meek and mild about what she did. And she's being displayed in the Wellington Te Papa. It's called Te Papa Museum, one of the best museums in the world. There it is in a glass cage. Imagine, you know, I had to look at the name twice and think, oh my God, so humble. These are the people that I love to meet and that I write about. Of course, I change names, dates, and places. You have to do that. But yeah, these are the experiences I've had.
Beautiful stories, isn't it? And that sort of, it's more than a story. It's a journey that somebody's been on, their experiences and
That's right.
their feelings and everything, really.
Yep.
How,
But only, you know, if over here in Australia, again, I've been to some, like the story about the emu. It's a true story. I was sitting there with scones and tea, and I'd never been that close to such a huge bird, and it just walked past me like I didn't exist. You know, it was like, hang on a mo. It was like I was in a place called Mandurah, and we don't have pelicans in New Zealand. And I'm sitting on the beach there having lunch with my husband, and this pelican landed and wanted, the people next to us had a big lunch, and it wanted food. Now, I was sort of taken aback by the size of this bird. It had a 10-foot wingspan. Who would have thought you would be frightened of a pelican? It was enormous. I've never seen anything like it. You know, in Tasmania, we were driving along, and I see this little prickly thing like a baby hedgehog, but it's not. It's not a hedgehog. It was like a wombat, and it crossed the road, and it stopped and looked at me, and I got my camera up. I'm videoing the whole thing. I've never been that close to a wild animal, like, you know, out of its burrow, across the road and up the bank. But it happened about.
it's fabulous, isn't it? To experience that in the nature and everything else, and yeah, to see it all. It's beautiful.
And then there's the things I don't like the snakes. No, I don't like them at all. And then the spiders. Oh my God. We've got one in our backyard at the moment. It's about that big. It's huge, and at night time it weaves this big web between the trees. And so in the morning when I go out and I've got to go through this little patch of bush to get to my workshop, it's like, oh, I don't want to go through there, but I have to get to the door. Yeah, so there's things I don't like here, but they're part of nature and I accept it. Yeah.
Well, I love it. Love it. It's sort of I think from other people from other parts of the world too. I mean, the size of creatures in Australia and New
Yeah.
Zealand as well, but the size of creatures is, a sort of a big spider to us would be probably like a baby spider compared to you guys.
It's a doozy. It really is. It's like, oh my God, how did you get to be that big? And I'm
Yeah.
full of that, Mary. I mean, I wouldn't dream of getting rid of it or killing it or harming it because it belongs there.
Mm.
I just don't like the sticky webs across my face when I walk through it. He's not there in the morning. He's there at night time. He weaves his web at night time. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. It's fantastic. Tell us, I mean, what to you does, what's the concept of fire in the belly? What does it mean to you?
Fire in the belly means passion. Passion about what you do. Passion about who you connect with. Passion about why you do it. That's fire in the belly to me.
Hmm. Is that something you have?
Definitely. Yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't write. I wouldn't do art, and I wouldn't run workshops. You've got to. If you don't pass on your passion, you're a bit stuck in life, aren't you?
What's your main thing? I mean, what's your main go-to, or is there different things for different days?
Honestly, it's different things for different days. Today I got up and thought I'm going to write. I entered an 800 word story into it, sat back and loved every moment of it. And then I packed my caravan, Pete, because I'm going away tomorrow.
I love it.
So yeah, whatever. I have set times for workshops. I have set times for workshops and writing and journaling. But apart from that, gosh, I have fun. I really do. I can't complain.
Give us a bit of background then. So where were you from originally, and talk to us a bit about your own family.
Whoa, my own family. Okay. I was born in a place called Nanai in Lower Hutt in Wellington, New Zealand. My own family, my dad was a pastor. Well, when I was about 7 or 8, he became a pastor of a church. And my mum, bless her cotton socks. Have you ever watched that program? It's an English one called Mrs. Bouquet or Mrs. Bucket.
Yes, yeah.
Well, my mother was that incarnate. She was gorgeous, but she was she was an English Jew for her background, and my father was an Irish man. And so we had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And I'll tell you, there was never a dull moment. The conversations we had around our Friday night table was absolutely inspiring. Plus, I had 2 sisters. One married a Fijian Indian, and another married a Spanish Maori. So you can imagine what went on around the table. There was all these different theories, different religions. And of course, children then were to be seen and not heard. So my main thing was sitting under the table, listening to all the gossip. And now and again, Dad would allow me a little small sherry. He'd passed it under the table to me, and I had to last me the night. And of course, when I was a kid, there was no ban on kids drinking beer. Dad had a beer, and we had a beer as well. None of us were drunks. In fact, I can't stand the taste now. But yeah, as a child, I was given a small shandy just to feel growing up. And because I was into drama and tap dance and dancing and poetry, I was always the entertainment for the night. So my father played the spoons, my mother played the mandolin, my uncles played the mouth organ, and my Maori family played the guitar. And the Fijian Indians, I played drums. So we had a full band, and I'd be tap dancing away there too. It was fun. It was so fun. But, we grow up and things change.
What beautiful memories to have, and that sort of, that interaction and everyone playing a role. It's beautiful.
Oh, I've told you the good side. I had an Irish father who was so argumentative that everything he said was painted in gold. Nobody dare in the family, nobody said that's wrong. I know my mother would say it behind his back, but nobody ever faced it. But he wasn't violent. He was a good man, but he was very strong in his beliefs. And why not? It didn't harm any of us. If you were naughty, you got punished. If you were good, I was his little girl. I was the baby, and I was his little girl. Yeah, and he had a nickname for all of us, and I spent most of my time in the garden with my dad. My dad was a beautiful gardener, lots of veggies. We had lots of neighbours to give it away to. So yeah, it was a good life.
What was the spread in years with all the kids?
I was a post-war baby, and my sisters were my blood sister was 8 years older, and while Dad was away at the war, Mum adopted a young girl called Lois, and Lois was 12 years older than me. She was my hero.
Really?
She used to save me. If someone was angry with me, she'd scoop me up and put me on a bike, and off we go. It was fun.
Who could possibly be angry at you?
I've got a list as long as my arm. I really have.
So what was Kaz going to do when she grew up? What was the plan for you?
Oh goodness, we're talking about the 1950s here. The plan for me was I would marry a good man and have children, and white picket fence, have a little mortgage, and perhaps go to the beach for a picnic on a Sunday. That was my mother's plan for all the girls. For some reason, it didn't work with any of us. We all married who we wanted to, really. And you know, this is my second marriage. We've been together 45 years. So my first marriage sort of flailed about, and yeah, we were both very self-opinionated, very passionate people, and we didn't really like each other. End of story.
Oops.
Yeah, that was a big oops.
I love that. Yeah, we didn't quite like each other. I was like, well, that kind of says it like it is, right? And how was it? I mean, obviously with your father becoming a pastor, so at the age of 7 for you, that's quite far on, right? You know, and for him to sort of to get into that. I mean, do you know what spurred that all on?
My mum. Yes, okay. My mum decided that she didn't want to be just Mrs. Wickham. She wanted a bit of fame to her name. And one of her best friends was another pastor in another church. And this woman did all the, mum's friend, she did all the sermons for her husband, and did the morning teas, and did the flower arranging, and literally was Sadie the cleaning lady for the church. And my mother gloried in that. She actually, you know, felt that she was working for God. And she never faltered. She wrote Dad's sermons. My dad was dyslexic and colourblind. So she wrote Dad's sermons for him. She did the flower arranging. She made all us girls beautiful, beautiful frocks to go to church with. She looked after the poor and the needy. Yeah, she left a beautiful footprint behind her. And I'm still in touch. One of her friends had about 4 kids, and I'm still in touch with one of the girls. And they always remember my mum as being Auntie Hilda. I think that's beautiful.
That's a great way to be. I mean, who did you take after then? Your mother, your father, or?
Both, actually. My mum was a songwriter poet. I don't write songs, but I write poetry. And my dad loved to speak, and he loved to be a speaker. And although I don't call myself a speaker, I'm certainly not frightened about standing up and saying something in a group of people if I think it's going to help someone. But I'm also, you know, at my age, I've got a bit of wisdom now, and I know when to shut up and sit down too. And that's very important.
That's interesting that knowing when to shut up and sit down. Why is that
Yeah.
important?
I just think some things should be kept to yourself. You know, you can stand up in a, I've seen it done, you can stand up in a crowd of people and make yourself look really, really stupid by talking about a subject you know nothing about. You know, what's the old adage? If a lot of things, oh, I actually forget it, Pete, something about a lot of, some people can know a lot of things about a lot of stuff and not make sense to anybody because they know just little bits about everything. They don't know the full story. And when you know the full story, it's like, well, okay, I'm just going to sit here and listen. And sometimes it's quite nice just to sit there and listen and just be part of the crowd. If I'm asked to speak, I will, but I wouldn't class myself as a world-class speaker. I'm too busy watching what people are doing and creating stories in my mind about what I think about the other people. And I'll often stop mid-sentence and think, what did you do there? And it doesn't quite make sense to the people I'm talking to. So yeah, I'm happy.
Would you have a fairly active imagination? I mean, when you talk about that, you sort of, it sounds like you play a lot of things in your mind.
Oh, Pete, you know, you've been in a crowd, you know, everybody acts differently, and the clown in the and all eyes are turned on that person that's making an absolute twit of themselves. They might applaud, they might say, get off, go away, but it's made an indent in your mind. And so there's a story there. But everybody I've met has a story. That's the wonderful thing about being a writer and why I encourage people to write their own stories. Everyone's got a story, whether it be sad or happy. It's a story. And, you know, I read a book recently about domestic violence. It was a man that was treated quite badly. And he told his story to my publisher and got a book out like that. And it was like, because domestic violence normally points towards women, doesn't it? So his book was quite, it was quite good to read, seeing it from a man's point of view.
Isn't it great? I mean, to see, I think wisdom and knowledge and so many things. I love when you see that different perspective because it is very
Yeah.
easy to sort of fall into the stereotype of, oh, this is what it is, but to see it from a different perspective is very powerful.
So you tell me, so what's the best thing to do, Pete, to go into a room and say, I know everything, or just sit quietly and watch what's going on? Because I love it. I just like to sit quietly and watch what's going on.
It's amazing because the book is sort of mentioned that I collaborated with recently, but one of the co-authors there talks about domestic violence, but it was actually him that was the violent person. Now, sort of life has moved on, and completely changed as a character, but my goodness, does it get the brain working differently? And it's incredibly powerful for the right reasons. There's sort of a lot of insights and a lot of lessons, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of sadness, but it's different, very different. To see that.
It is different, but the sad thing about it is that these adults that have been involved in any which way can write their books. It's the kids that suffer domestic violence. It must be terrifying. I didn't suffer it. I had a very good childhood, but I remember if Dad got angry, Mum would say, "Okay, kids, into the lounge," and she'd have a word with Dad. But there was that, what's going to happen? Why are they so angry with each other? And knowing other children that have been around domestic violence, these kids come away with huge amounts of fear, and their self-esteem is shattered because there's nothing they can do. They can't stop Mum and Dad from fighting or being abused. I just think it's incredibly sad that we have to, well, in my point of view, that we have to be ugly in nature to make a point. There's no need. Our kindness is so called for. It really is. It's in this time and day and age. What is wrong with holding out your hand and saying, "How can I help you?" I will if I can. I will. And sometimes you can't. And where kids are concerned, because the law doesn't allow you to go there, you've got to be sort of have credentials to your name to help in any way. rightly so too. You know, you see so much heartbreak, and it just hurts to see. You know, like, I'm very lucky. I live in a fabulous neighbourhood, and each side of me I've got young people, and their parents are fabulous. And we have a bit of yelling occasionally. You know, the kids have been a bit naughty, but you know, you smile and you remember your days of yelling at your own kids. I just think, oh wow, that was really, really a big yell, but we just get on with it. But there's no violence, you know, and yet down the street, I know there's a family that suffers incredibly with it. And I just think it's sad because the kids, yeah, they lose their happiness. They lose their happy place. And it's not fair, is it? To take to make everybody feel miserable because you're unhappy.
I mean, for you, what's fundamentally what's the sort of the ideal setup for children in terms of, you know, their growth and their development and things like that?
Well, number one, I've never seen, when I've been on the road, I've never seen a cross-family travelling. Never seen it. The kids are confident, sometimes overconfident. The kids are welcoming, they're smiling. Okay, so they've got snotty noses and there's flies hanging. You know, that's part of being a kid. They greet you. They'll shake your hand. A 3-year-old will come up and shake your hand. How's that? You know, they've seen the adults do it. A 5-year-old will. I was travelling about 6 months ago. No, about a year ago. And a 13-year-old unfolded his fold-out chair so I could sit down and talk to his mum, and I was impressed. It's lovely. Thank you very much. Nice young man. I don't see how the digital world is going to help our families. I don't see it. You know, I think we're going to have to go back to square one of being human and showing decency towards one another. This bullying, this unkindness has got to stop. It really has. And I'm not preaching here, but I hear about it all the time. And it's just, can't stop it. You know, so what do you do? So I write about it. I put it in my books, and you know, I have a good time with people. I write about it, and then I get them in here, and we do some art, and yeah, it's pretty good.
It's a lovely way to be, isn't it? I mean, and despite globalization, technology, speed of information, all the rest, and yet we still need to, I suppose, be mindful of our own space and deep connections with people around us, as opposed to
Yeah.
5,000 Facebook friends. You know, why not just have a dozen, you know, strong friends or people you know well?
Yeah, well, I must admit that I spend about 2 hours a day on Facebook adding things and taking things off and seeing who everyone is. But I must admit, I really do miss meeting my girlfriends. They're all working now, and I work from home. But yeah, meeting them and having a laugh and having a cup of coffee and sitting by the beach and watching the crazy seagulls and watching the kids play in the park and just talking about life. I really do miss it.
Hmm. It is. I mean, I'm sure lockdown's been hard for different people for different reasons, right? You know, it's
Yes.
isolation, which can be a form of punishment for some people.
I believe so in Melbourne. I have a grandson in Melbourne, and he was just going far. He really was. But lockdown, I must admit, I enjoyed. I absolutely enjoyed it because I had mostly my work was done on the computer or by phone, but I had all that time. I didn't have people calling on me to go to work or teach or tutor in any way. I just had 6 weeks holiday, and I painted. I threw paint everywhere, and I just had a good time. I wrote. Most conversations with my phone. My daughter did the shopping for us, and she dropped it off at the door, and that was the strangest feeling ever. I couldn't hug my child. And even though she's 40, we've always hugged each other. And that was the hardest part for me, is I couldn't grab her and give her a hug and say I love you. But you know, we would she'd sit in the car and I'd stand by the front door and we'd do sign language to each other. And yeah, so we got through it. It was only 6 weeks for us, so we got through it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it amazing how, I mean, it's just been a wacky year anyway, right? And
Yeah.
but it also, I think, has potentially brought some appreciation too, right? Of connections and a bit of a reset button as
Definitely.
well.
Appreciation for each other is, if it hasn't happened now, it never will.
Mm, mm. It's yeah. I think I was saying to someone a while ago, it's like the internet was a revolution in itself, but that took like 15, 20 years to fully get up to speed, which is still quick in terms of history, but
Yeah.
the pandemic has caused a global reset in where are we up to 9 months now, or whatever it is, and since the concept came to light.
If you could have seen the first computer that my boss bought me when I was teaching, it was huge. And it clunked, and clunk, 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 clunk. As I typed, it clunked. And it had a big arm that came out and did all sorts of things. And I used to think, oh my God, I'm working on a computer. I never thought I would use it. And then a little word, I was given a word processor, and that was even better. And it's just evolved from then. So these kids at school that jump on a computer and can do wonders with it, they amaze me. I don't know how their brain is formed like that, because mine didn't. I was busy making grass angels at the age of 10 and playing on the berm and playing skip rope with my mates and hopscotch and riding bikes and, dreaming about marrying Elvis Presley. But these kids are wonders, absolute wonders with the digital world. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how their brains are patented. It amazes me.
It's probably the skill of technology too, because I always remember my father used to say, it's like if you have to read the instructions, it's designed badly. And now so much technology now is intuitive, kind of going, well,
Yeah.
I would try pressing this and that works. That's clever, clever design too, right? It's just a smart way.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Push that button. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm geared digitally. I really don't. I can do Zoom and I was talking to a lady that I'm co-authoring a book with in Japan this morning, and I kept thinking, I'm talking to Japan. It was such a thrill, and yet when I told another friend of mine, she went, "Yeah, so what?" So, but to me, it's a huge thrill that I can talk to people like you, to Japan, to America. So I appreciate that side of the technology, but yeah, it's watching. They fascinate me what they do. They're so quick, they're so fast, and how does your brain keep up with it? Or are they a different species from my childhood?
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah.
Talk to us on a bit of a serious note. Talk to us about Elvis.
Oh, Elvis, my heartthrob. Yeah. Me and my hairbrush, we used to dance all over the bed singing Elvis tunes. I was word perfect. I used to do all the dance moves. My mother was horrified with the hip thrusting and the wriggly hips. She was horrified. Her daughters didn't dance like that because we were taught to ballroom dance. Yeah, so door was closed, music on quietly while mum was entertaining, and I'd be jumping all over the bed doing blue suede shoes was my favourite. Yeah, loved Elvis Presley.
Yeah, when the singing, it was always the dancing.
Dancing. No, I've got such dulcet tones my mother gave up.
I love it. And even there, obviously from very early age, because you talked about the tap dancing as a kid and the drama and all that. And that obviously continued
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yeah, well, when I was in my 30s, I decided, well, I hadn't danced for a while, and my husband's a non-dancer. So I missed the music, and I missed the action of the body. I believe to move your body is very healthy. So yeah, I started courses in belly dancing and just absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was wonderful. Yeah, and then after that, there was I did a little bit of what would you call it? I don't know. It was just It was meeting the Hare Krishnas in Cuba Street in Wellington and marching down the street with them. And I would have been about 14, 15 when I did that. And dancing to their music because it fascinated me. There's nothing wrong. Dancing's so healthy. It's such a healthy thing to do. I don't care how you do it. Don't keep your dance on your elbows. I don't care. It's so healthy. So if maybe everybody got up and danced first thing in the morning, it would be a better place.
It's a great way of looking at it. Absolutely. We should all be dancing, getting ourselves out there.
Yeah, it's a nice thought, isn't it? If we all got up and danced for 10 minutes, even the people that can't stand, are immobile, if they just did some sort of action. It's so important to keep our bodies moving. Otherwise you rust.
It's very true. You sort of stiffen up and move on. But so what was your first career? What was your main thing, or was?
Oh, I was a ticket writer and window dresser in James Street in Wellington. My mother got me the job because in those days, well, I don't know about anywhere else, but in New Zealand, I was 16 or nearly 16 when I left school. And my mother said, I found a job for you. And so she came to the interview with me and she met the manager and she signed the contract. Excuse me. And I was hired. And I worked with a Samoan man who was gay. But I had no idea. I just had no idea about that world at all. Very protected young girl. And I just loved him. Just loved him. He used to wear earrings and blue eyeshadow and a necklace. He used to wear lovely woman's clothes and dress the windows of this massive corner street store in Wellington. And he was very talented and very nice to me. I had such a good time. Learned lots.
What was it? Is the creativity side of it? What was it about the window dressing that did it for you?
Yeah, it was the creativity side of it, being given the afternoon and finish at 8. So we had to have dressed 2 windows by then. And you had to pick at the store. So it was it was his theme. He chose the theme and I was the gopher. I'd go and get whatever he wanted to put in the window. And then he'd say to me, darling, hand me that. I'd hand it to him. And I loved him. I just thought he was such a nice bloke. If you can call a gay person a bloke, he was a nice bloke.
It's great, isn't it? I mean, even sort of expressing themselves and that very being, very out. It's art, right? I mean, that's sort of window dressing in itself and that creating that little picture of a world.
Well, the thing was, we're talking about the 1950s here. They weren't welcome in our world, that sort of person. They had a different lifestyle to us. Now it's just part of who they are, and I'm really pleased about that. But then if I'd have told my parents, things would have been different. I would have had to have left that job because it wasn't up to their expectations of what their daughter should be mixing with. So I would leave my job and get on the train. And on the train, I met 2 girls that taught me how to smoke cigarettes, and I loved that. And these 2 girls had a hip flask, and I used to have a slice out of that as well. So I can't, I'd go home and Mum would say, you have been a busy girl? And I'd say, yes. Go and have a shower, go and have the dinner. I don't remember anything horribly bad happening except I just wish it had been a different world for him. I really do. Because he wasn't welcome and he was a nice guy.
Isn't it funny when we forget how far we've come as a global nation, really, and well, in some ways we have, some ways
that's a good thing. It's a good thing. We have a right to be who we want to be.
Even at that sort of fairly, young age, actually, people can appreciate the art in which they form, but yet maybe struggle to appreciate the person that did it, the creator.
That's very true. Very true. Yeah.
You know, it's bizarre that sort of disconnect in some ways, really, isn't it? You know that
Yep.
different levels of appreciation. So how long was you doing how long were you doing the window dressing for? It was,
About a year. About a year, and then my mother decided, I don't know whether she found out or not, but she decided that that job wasn't worthy of her youngest daughter, her baby. So she got me, I had to leave, and she got me a job at a maternity home as a nurse aide. And yeah, that wasn't for me at all. I I knew where babies came from. I knew how they got where they got, but I didn't want to see people giving birth. So I was only there 2 weeks. I was horribly, horribly sick one night watching a woman give birth. I couldn't. The doctor was in she was in the theatre, and they asked me then. This is going back a few years. Then to hold on to a basin that he threw the instruments in. Yeah, I ended up passing out. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Even now, I'm like, oh my god.
just a
Yeah.
bit.
So then after that, my mother said to me, in her words, "You're far too attractive. It's about time you married." So they found me a husband. That was it.
Amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. But those, that's to think, oh look, they did the wrong thing. They did the right thing by me, Pete. I was getting a little bit wild. I knew that. I was kicking up my heels. But I was doing what every other girl did at our age as well. If you think back, were they cruel? No. Did they do the right thing by their own thoughts? Yes, they did. Did they have a conversation? Is this good for kids? Well, yes, they did. Did they involve me in the conversation? No. I was literally told I was going to do as I was told. But my father was very high up in the church then, and my mother was quite high up in her regime in the church as well. So I never argued. Why would you argue when you think people want the best for you?
It's I mean, that's the thing you've always got to be mindful of. It's all well and good applying today's thinking on history, but we just weren't there yet. It was just a very different period in time, right?
That's right.
As you
And if
say, I
you go
mean,
to a third world country, it's still the same way that mum and dad have arranged marriages. Mine wasn't an arranged marriage, but I was told that this bloke was single. He actually approached my father and asked for my hand in marriage. My dad, he thought about it, but this guy was part of the church. Really, a really, really good mask on, which my father didn't see through. My father was pretty good with people. And yeah, I got married. I had a beautiful wedding. I had 2 beautiful children to this man. And then I decided it wasn't working. Yeah, that's simple.
Yeah, makes sense. So you obviously went your own separate ways and really sort of moved on. So
Well, we did. He still lives in New Zealand, and I lived on my own as a divorcee for 2 years, and met my fabulous husband now. So it was all, but I wouldn't have met him if it hadn't have been through my first husband who introduced us. And we got together after a bit of a while, and yeah, we've been together 45 years in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's a good reason to celebrate and go away.
Yes, yeah. So we'll be on a place called Albany in 2 weeks' time, celebrating.
And do you believe in fate? Is that fate?
I do.
Is that
I do. If it's not meant to be, it won't happen. If you try and push the universe, it pushes back. Just have a self-belief in yourself and write down your goals. Just above me, I have a corkboard full of my goals. And okay, so I'm a senior. I'm what they call an elder here in Australia, but I've still got goals and dreams. One of them is to make a movie. Any movie producers watching this, please get in contact with me. But my one aim is to make my first book on my first book with this publisher a movie. I think it would make a fabulous movie about touring around Australia and meeting all sorts of people in New Zealand and places like that. So that's one of my goals and dreams. So never give up. Never ever give up on your goals, your dreams, your desires. But when it comes to looking at the universe, I don't push it too hard. That's what I want, but it might not occur. And you've got to take that on the chin as well. I've got a fabulous life, Pete. I'm not sorry about anything. All the lessons I've learnt and people I meet and people I've met. It's pointless being sorry about it. Pointless. It only leads you to misery. Look at the good side of things. Look at the things you have done, where you've been, who you've contacted, who you've motivated, who you've left a footprint for. That's the big side of life.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's a great attitude to have. I mean, a very positive and very outgoing attitude. I mean, is that, and even setting those goals, is that something you've always done, or is that something that's sort of evolved?
Always. One didn't come true. Marrying Elvis Presley didn't come true. But I was quite disappointed about that.
I don't blame you.
Well, yeah, but you see, the thing is, I was already married when he got married, so it wouldn't have worked. But yeah, I would say that most of my goals and dreams, they don't come true just like that. It's not possible. But I find that if I set a goal or a dream, like last year, my publisher said to me, come with me to Ireland and come and live in a castle and meet a whole lot of other authors. And I thought, where's the money coming from? Because it's not cheap. And then I thought, blow it, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. So I said to my husband, your brother lives in Scotland. You want to go see your brother? And he went, yeah, I do. So next thing you know, we did we went from here to Dubai and stayed with family. We went from Dubai to England and stayed with family. Then I stayed in the castle with my publisher and all these authors. These authors became my tribe. Within 7 days, I had this, I was so, what's the word? I was empowered by them to write even more. They were fabulous people to be with. And then after that, we went to Spain, visited 3 countries in Spain, and then to Singapore, and then back home. So that wasn't a simple, I think I'll go to Ireland to live in a castle for a week. That was super duper, you've been such a good girl at the university, here you are. But, you plan for it. We had to plan for it. We had to save money. We had to work extra hours. So it was all planned for, but sometimes the universe lets you use your own skills to get where you want to go. Just got to make a goal, make a plan.
I like that. How would you describe yourself? I mean, religious, spiritual? I mean, you've talked about universal power and connection and things like that. I mean, where would you put yourself?
I'm very spiritual. Yeah. I'm very, I would call it spiritual. There's nowhere else, I'm very matter of fact. The Irish side of me is very tactless, I'll tell you how it is. And I have to watch those words. The English Jewish side of me is a drama queen, and I have to watch what I do there. So yeah, and there's nothing I would change, because the lessons I've learnt in the past have made me who I am now. And so if people want to put a tag on me, which I really don't like, as artist, author, poet, I'm just curious. And if I can help you, I will. And that's all there is to life.
I'm curious, what was the difference between the way you were brought up and the way you brought your kids up? I'm just curious how that changed, or what.
I think financially it changed. because my parents went through the war and the Depression, Mum never actually left that world. Even when I was in my teens. See, New Zealand was 10 years behind everybody else. So when everybody else had washing machines in America and Australia, my mum still had a copper. You know, the old coppers that you lit a fire and boiled the clothes. My mum had one of those for many years. And we just thought nothing of it. That's the way the world was. One day, Dad said, we're pulling the copper out and I bought your electric washing machine. Now, my mother stood there, and this is a memory. My mother stood there like I did with my new Word 10 computer and just stared at it and said, what do I do? Well, first you plug it in and turn the switch on. So, yeah, it was very simple, very basic, but she was used to lighting the fire, and that's the way she was brought up. I was brought up from my teens with a washing machine and a fridge. But I remember the old days too, Pete, when we had a cooler box, not a fridge. And we had a copper, not a washing machine. And every Sunday was bath day. So, yeah, those days never hurt anybody. They didn't hurt us. You know, it was part of life. And we just grew, you know, things were given to us, we just grew. Like, my parents had a wind-up gramophone, which I was allowed to wind up. And then all of a sudden, they got a gramophone. Where did that come from? You just turn a knob. And then after that, there was a TV in the lounge, and just turn a knob. We didn't have controls. Just sit in our chair and press controls. You had to actually get up and flip the switch off and get up and turn it off. And TV finished at 7 o'clock. So Mum would serve tea, and we'd all have a nat around the table and then go do our you know, go to bed or whatever. But those memories, I look back at the kids today, and I mean, they just sit there with a button and I think, get up and move, just move. Get up and stand, just stand for 5 minutes and let the blood go through. And you know, the memories I've got, that how the world's changed. And I think there's lots of people with the same memories I've got, except they don't have the opportunity to talk to you about the fire in the belly, and they don't like books. But you know, one day, maybe one day, we'll all go back to the old ways. Who knows?
No,
I'm so glad I taught my son how to make scones, because he won't starve.
Hey, listen, making scones, that's pretty developed. Like, I mean, because making pasta is kind of possibly the lowest. Well, making bread and butter is probably the lowest of the rung.
Yeah.
Scones is right up there. You got to have some different ingredients. You got to mix it up. You got to bake it. So that's pretty evolved, right?
I'll disagree with you. Yeah, my husband's a good cook. He's a good baker. He's always baked the scones. He does the majority of the cooking now. I just sit back and write. Yeah, but just like going out into the bush with writing my book and watching him bake damper, which is an Australian way of baking bread over an open fire. That smell is so enticing. The fire, you can smell the fire, and then you smell the fresh damper, and then you pour treacle all over. Oh, yummy. It's just yum.
I'm literally salivating here. I'm going, that sounds divine.
It is. And he's quite creative with his damper. Sometimes we'll have sometimes we'll put dried herbs in them with a bit of cheese or a bit of goat's cheese in it. Sometimes it's a little bit of sugar. Yeah, it's just when you stop the van, you get out. Sometimes, like from now onwards until March, there's prohibited fire, because there's massive fire risks all around Australia with such dry country. So we'll do it they have these big fire pits and different laybys, and we'll just light a fire in a fire pit, and that's the way you do it. But yeah, I'll make the salad in the caravan, and he's got the big damper going, and the snarlers going, and it's not a bad life.
And we were talking before we came on there. We were talking about guilty pleasures and you know, the things you're looking forward to doing on this trip of yours. I think you were saying
no
wine.
Such thing as a guilty pleasure.
A pleasure.
No
a lovely pleasure.
Well, I said I was going to Margaret River, and Margaret River is the capital of WA for wine, cheese, and chocolate. I'm a non-drinker, but my husband loves his tipple, and I love my chocolate, and we both love blue vein cheese. So the first thing we do, we'll we're going to the beach to put the caravan up. We'll do all the work we have to do with the caravan. Then I'm working at a retreat for a day, showing them how to journal and do some art. And then we plan to visit the wineries, and there's quite a few. There's about 30. You have to be careful. Thank God I drive, because he's very happy on the way home. And then the next day there'll be the chocolate factory, which is just divine. The smell just goes down the road. It's beautiful. Then there's the cheese factories, and they're handmade cheeses, and they have goat's cheese and cow's cheese, and I don't know, all sorts of cheeses. So yeah, it's going to be. We've done the trip before, and we're just looking forward to doing it again.
So it sounds divine. I mean, just the pace of life and the appreciation and the senses and the food and everything else. It just what a treat, an absolute treat.
It is a treat. We're very lucky to be able to do it. COVID shut everything down, and since they've gone back and taken the borders off, because they also put borders up within WA, so we couldn't travel there. We could go, I think it was 25 kilometres away from our own home, and that was it. So there's not much point in putting the caravan on the back and going anywhere. But no, I just, the 2 weeks that we'll come home after Margaret River, and then we're going to a place called Albany. My husband has a friend there who's a filmmaker, and he's producing a film. But it's right by the beach. And the cafe strip there is amazing. Just drooling. Yeah, it's amazing. They have the best blueberry buns I have ever tasted, and the farmers market there is amazing.
Guys, you're killing me here. I'm starving.
Well, you've got to come over. You've got to come over.
Absolutely. I love it. The beach, or where's your place of grounding? Where do you like to go to sort of even be with yourself or gather your thoughts?
Well, you do know that New Zealand's a very narrow country. So I was born in the middle, so I could go bush or beach, and it took maybe an hour there or half an hour there to go to the beach. If I'm really, really wanting to get deep inside me, I'll head for the bush. And because New Zealand it's a different bush. It really is. It's very thick. It's very heavy. It's very dense. I appreciate finding a big group of pine trees, and I'll sit there, and maybe I'll take a thermos with me, and I'll just make notes. But if I'm feeling like a walk in the fresh air and seagulls screaming, I'll go to the beach. We live 10 minutes from the beach, and it's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. So we're very lucky. When you've got time, Pete, go onto Google and Google Rockingham, WA, and you'll see the beach come up where I live. Oh my God, you will be so jealous.
This is not fair, Kez. I'm sitting here. I'm starving. You're pointing me to beaches that I can't get to anytime soon because of.
Well, I told you. Once the borders are up, come on over. It's great.
I'll be coming in with the kids, the wife, the whole thing, and just Oh.
Well, we've got a caravan here, Pete. You can use it. How's that?
I love it. Oh, geez, what a treat! What an absolute treat. And with your family and that, are your family all close by, or have they dispersed around?
No, my family's in New Zealand, Melbourne, Northern Queensland, Northern Territory, Dubai, England, Spain, and I've got one daughter here. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's amazing that sort of global community, and people can travel and all the different cultures and things that you're immersed in.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Do you guys Zoom? I mean, have you able to have like family conferences all together? Does that happen?
It has once, but they were also busy yammering. So I was just sitting there, let me get a word in. Yeah. It's only happened once because two of my kids don't see eye to eye, so they were balefully glaring at each other. So yeah, we've only ever done it once, and that was to please me.
Oh, that's all right. You can call the shots too, right?
That's right. Boy, you two put your heads in.
Oh, I love it. And in terms of your own mindset and where you're at, I mean, does that come naturally to you, or I mean, do you have to work on yourself quite a lot, or what way does that work for
I
you?
used to be. I
Mm,
used to work on myself a lot and think I wasn't, how can I put it? I wasn't the person that people expected me to be. And then I grew up. I just had to grow up and realize I'm me. And if you don't like me, it's tough. I'm going to be who I am. So I had to stop trying to fit into everybody else's, this is how you should be and this is what you should be doing, and just do what I love to do. And it suits me best.
isn't that amazing? I mean, what sort of time in your life was that when you sort of eventually decided to be yourself?
Ooh, I would have been in my 40s.
Is there something about that, do you think? I mean, that sort of midlife opportunity that
Yes,
you eventually go,
definitely.
uh,
My youngest is 38, and I can see her changing. I can see her changing her ideals in the world. She's got two young ones. Not only see it, I hear it. Her ideals have changed completely.
yeah, I mean, I'm literally just gone 41, and even fire in the belly, the whole thing, and it's only really come about in the last 3 years where
Yeah,
you just say enough's enough. I don't, what happened in my childhood or what somebody expected of me a long time ago or whatever else. It's kind of going, that's great, but that was then, and I'm here and I'm now. So
that's right.
amazing.
Today is today.
Mm, mm. Is that something you sort of live by? I mean, what's your mantra every day? Do you have one, or your ethos?
Not really. It's just I have a mantra of be who you want to be because everybody else is taken. And it was Judy Garland that said that. But really and truly, I just think I'm just so happy being me. I don't get up too much mischief. I try not to upset people. I know I do, but I try not to. Life's good.
And do you think Elvis is waiting for you on the other side?
It's a bit late. Found someone else I like better. Sean
You,
Connery, please.
oh, I love it. I love it. Tell me this. I mean, it's maybe a bit of a, people sometimes say it's a vanity question. It's not intending to be, but I mean, do you like yourself? Do you love yourself?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I really like who I've turned out to be.
Hmm.
I really like me. And if that offends some people, then I'm sorry, but I don't want to change anything about me. I mean, okay, you can change hairstyles, you can change the colour of lipstick and all the rest of it. You can lose weight, you can gain weight. But at the end of the day, it's your heart that talks to people. It's the heart that shines out of my eyes. It's not my ego. So let's put our egos away and just be who we're supposed to be. If you try and be someone different, I truly believe it can be damaging to the spirit.
Do you ever find there is a gap between who you are on a sort of a day-to-day
Not
outcome
anymore.
basis?
No. There was in my younger days. Yes, I would think, oh, I better act like that because that's what they're expecting. But now it's like this is me.
Mm.
You're expecting a magnificent presence in the room, and I'm sorry, you've got me. So the way it is. Yeah.
What sort of message do you sort of wish that everyone could take on? I mean, is there a certain thing that you think is just
Yeah. I just wish people were kinder to each other. Just wish
mm,
they thought about before they opened their mouths, let the words fall out. Um, why do what confuses me, and it always will do, I guess, is why do people have to own you? Why do people have to bully you into submission to think, do, and be what they want you to be when the real you screaming to get out and saying, I'm not having such a good time here. Yeah, I've got to face it. I've been there, Pete, and it wasn't pleasant. So it took me a couple of years to actually grow up and say, I'm not interested. I've got to be me. I've got to write. I've got to sing. I've got to dance. I've got to paint. I've got to, you know, they may call you an artist and they may call you an author. They're just flash names. You're actually doing what your spirit cries out for.
I love that. And I suppose it's being in touch with your spirit or your inner self to actually find that, and
Sometimes you have to walk down the dark passage to get there. I
mm,
know 2 or 3 people that are doing it and thinking, why me, why me? Well, why not you? Why not you? Because you have the skills. And today, we have such clever people with counselling and all the rest of it that can walk through with you. So why are you beating yourself up? Why not come up the other end with a smile?
mm. In your life, have
I
you?
mean, that's a very blasé way. There's a lot of people out there suffering terribly, and I all kudos to them for what they're going through. It must be horrible for whatever they're going through, but really in my life, all I can say is if you're going to walk down, there's always someone to hold your hand. Always.
That's such a strong message to put across, that actually, no matter how good or bad, there's always someone there, should you
Yeah,
choose and let them be as well.
yeah. See, even when I was a little girl, and there was no such thing as counsellors, there was a psychiatrist I think Mum was friends with, but there was none of all this mental health stuff going on. And yet, the way my elders handled it was Saturday morning at my mother's place, my aunties would meet. Now, I had about 8 aunties from different sides of the family. And they'd go hell for leather about tearing their husbands apart and bloody kids and all the rest of it, And then 2 hours later, and eating mum's good scones and cream. And then 2 hours later, they'd all go home as happy as Larry because they'd still, what was their problem was, and some of the aunties, some would cry and some aunties would pat better with the tissues and the hankies and God knows what. But I never saw one auntie leave without a smile because it was community and we all helped that one person. My job was to look after the babies. Now, I wasn't a baby person. I'd rather the babies went somewhere else. But it was my job to watch the babies didn't crawl out of the playpen. Now, I could see what was going on with the ladies, and it always fascinated me because we don't have that now. We don't have the, we have networking groups. And I haven't been invited out literally for a cup of tea with mates because they all work for a long time now. We talk on the phone, we laugh, we have Zoom calls. There's all of us online, but yeah, it's. I think if I didn't put myself out there, Pete, I would be a lonely existence. Because you can get trapped into your own mind. You can get thinking, I just want to write. Well, okay, just write, but we need to go out there and experience the world as well, because the world's a beautiful place. So I've already made you hungry, so the world's a yummy place, and I've already wanted you to come over to see the oceans over here because it's a beautiful place.
It's powerful. I love that, and love that sort of that very visual aspect as well. It's a what age do you see yourself as, Kaz? I'm not asking your age. It's just in terms of what age do you feel? Put it like that.
I'd say 40s. Yeah. I know I'm gonna be a year older and just after our wedding anniversary, and it's like, and I said to my husband, have you remembered? And he went, I remember. How could you forget? I'm always there saying birthday soon. So what do I want for my birthday? He said, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I've got everything I want. Got everything. I just what more could you want? Got everything. So let's go out for dinner and enjoy a lovely meal somewhere in each other's company. That's only, I've never really wanted riches or diamonds or gold. That's never been my genre in life. My genre has been sharing experiences, sitting around a fire, sitting around a table, and talking about life. And that's how you learn about life, is watching how other people cope and listening to their stories. So yeah, I only feel about 40. I'm not, I wish I was, but it's a number, Pete. If people get so focused. Oh, I'm in my 60s and in the 70s. I'm feeling old. Well, it's life. You do stiffen up. You do get old. You do these things happen. Health takes its measure as well. It's just, you just got to get out there and live it.
Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, it was like there's what Joe Biden, the new American president, he's 77, I think it is.
Yeah, 77.
Fair play to him.
71. He's 71.
71, sorry, but
And
even
I know
still,
that.
that's impressive, right? Because being a president, I'm sure, is not easy.
No, what a stressful job. I wouldn't want it for anything.
I know a lot of people that wouldn't, but you still got to tip your hat to him, I suppose, and say, well,
Oh,
fair play.
yes, yeah.
Hmm.
And no matter who's president of the United States, I just hope they're happy doing it. I hope they grow. I hope the states grow. I hope you cannot not wish that for them. They're a great nation. Same as when I look at the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. I thought, wow, you're in your 40s. What an amazing journey.
No, that's beautiful. So tell us, I mean, if you were to summarize Fire in the Belly for you, and your Fire in the Belly in 1 or 2 words, what would it be?
What would it be? Oh, in 2 words. Clever with my work. I love being involved with my work, and I have a real passion for it. So I guess the main word would be giving.
It's beautiful.
There you go.
Simple. There's so much to that. Service and giving. It's so powerful. So powerful.
What else is there? At the end of the day, we all have to learn to give, whether it's information or part of us or part of what we have in our homes. We all have to learn that it can't mean more than another person's grief or hurt. It can't mean more than that thing. Especially with family, you can't see them go through hell. And then sit in your own lovely home, in your own lovely armchair, watching your own lovely TV, having your own lovely meal, and think, it's just not. It just doesn't seem possible to me. So people were kinder, and this is what my message is to everybody. Someone watches this, please be kind to one another. It's free. That's the best thing. It's like fresh air. It's free.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
It's a bit like that bucket list, isn't it? People say, I want to drink pina coladas on the beach, and it's like, well, that's good for an afternoon. You do that for
used to you at night. 2 or 3 pina coladas, and you're out to it.
But it's that thing, whereas whether it's legacy or giving or connecting or just helping others, that is so it's so much more longevity. It's so much more the ripple effect. It's somebody coming back, or it's not even whether they come back or not, just knowing that there's good's been done in the world. And
well, it's like that Samoan girl I met from Queen Street. Thank you. And I looked at her. I thought, for what? What did I do? And she went, and she told me who she was, and she told me the class she was in. And I went, oh right, okay, I remember you now. I didn't do anything. I gave her a couple of clues, or I gave her something. What she did was she gave herself self-respect. She gave herself, she got herself a good job. She got herself a nice little house. She has a nice, well, I presume he was a nice man. They have a child. So all that came after maybe sitting with me in my class with 15 other students and me banging on about self-esteem and being respectful. That's how it all eventuated. Just that one person, I will never forget her, because I thought, well, if I haven't left a footprint anywhere else, there you go. That one person. It's all we have to aim for in our lives. One person to make a change.
Love it. Guys, tell us, where can people reach out to you, find you, track you down, hunt you down, stalk you?
Oh, stalk me. That's a new one. I've never been stalked. You never know. If you go to my web, keswickhamstgeorge.com, and they can contact me through that. So all the details are on there, and on all the different like Facebook and all that's on there as well. So they just have to go to the web and they'll be able to talk to me.
No, absolutely.
I do a lot of work in the Philippines as well. I train writers over there. I recently, as I said, co-authored, but I've trained another woman in Japan. So I work with other people from different countries.
And your most recent book there is the it's not Metal Mermaid. What's your most recent one?
This is my book, my baby, my book. I don't know if you'll see it while I'm up there. Can you see it?
Yeah, Metal Mermaid. Lovely. Yeah.
See that?
It's beautiful.
Bestseller.
Yeah. Love
How
it.
cool is that? That was a complete, just before the launch, my publisher rang me and she went, "You're the bestseller in 3 different categories." And I was blown away because that's someone gave me something, and that was, I never thought I'd be a bestseller. So, and that was a goal of mine. Everything's possible. I don't care what age you are, everything's possible.
I love it. So we just need to manifest the movie now and then you're sorted, 100%.
No, not really. I'll find something else I want. I've got 2 more books to come out. I'm looking for the movie. Yeah, who knows? I want to travel more in the caravan, and I want to go back to Ireland. I thought it was the most beautiful. Reminded me of New Zealand, actually.
Beautiful. Yeah. Ireland's a great place. But we've got to come your direction too. Honestly, those taste that food and wine and cheese and sandy beaches and
I'll sit here and wait for you, shall I?
So just if we get this pandemic over and done with, we'll be sorted, no problem at all. Kez, it's been an absolute delight talking to you this morning. Thank you for coming on Fire in the Belly. And
thank you so much.
Wish you well and look forward to reading the next book soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.